Thank you so much.
And yeah, so everybody should see the text now. And we will continue. So, we have talked about the study of Torah, we've talked about other subjects. Now, Rabbi Shimon Omer. Of course, Rabbi Shimon is the same Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, which many of you have probably heard of. And again, I was talking about how appropriate it is that we're studying Pirkei Avot in the summer months. It's actually also very appropriate that we're talking about Rabbi Shimon, because Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is very strongly related this time of the year. We're in the middle of the Omer, when we'll get to the 33rd day of the Omer, to Lag BaOmer. That is, of course, the tradition, the Yortzeit of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and lots of people go to his tomb and so on. So let's see a teaching from Rabbi Shimon, or a motto, like we have heard before. This Pirkei Avot, they're not just random teachings; they are things which were very important for them. Rabbi Shimon Omer, have a zahir b'kriyat Shema. Be careful with the reading of the Shema uvatfilah, and the prayer. Okay, so his first thing is a very I wouldn't say a bit like a ritual, halachic point. You have to be very careful with Shema and prayer. Okay, so simply put, it seems to be just saying, make sure to say them. Make sure to say them perhaps at the right time. There are limits there. The Shema has to be said before the Sof Zman Shema, the latest time for Shema. The Amidah should be said for the latest time of the Amidah, in the morning, in the evening. There are certain times. So you have to be careful that you keep these laws. You're aware of the times. You're aware when is the earliest and when is the latest time to say these prayers. Sounds like a technical point. It's actually interesting that this is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai speaking, because he is actually a person who was well known for the studying Torah the whole time. We have previously in the Nordic Bet Midrash discussed Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and how he was the man of Torah study, and how he didn't want to do anything else, and this tale about how he was in a cave for 12 years studying Torah, and he couldn't understand what was going on when he left the cave. That's why are people working and not studying Torah? It's actually interesting, because of this constant study of Torah, he didn't actually even take breaks for the prayer, because he was exempt from prayer because he was constantly studying Torah. So it actually comes up quite interesting that he is the one here who's talking about being careful about the tefillah, about the prayer. Now,
Rav Shmuel, you have to add that in the story that you mentioned in the cave, the very famous part was actually that they had some clothes that they needed to keep in a good stand, so they didn't use it all the time, only for prayer. The rest of the time they covered themselves with sand. So he did have an aspect that when you come to the prayer, that you can't do covered with sand. That you have to take your clothes on. So in that aspect, in that sense, also when he was in the cave, the aspect of the importance of tefillah was there too. But you're right. It was a world olam shekulot Torah. It was, of course, a world that was filled with first of all Torah, but there was also a special place for tefillah also there.
Yes, very good. And I think it's important whenever we speak about tefillah, we're talking about different things. We have the 3 prayers a day, which are very specific, and these are your so to say, your prayer obligations. And then there's the larger concept of talking to God, speaking to Him, asking from Him, praising Him, which you can do the whole time and wherever and whenever. And I think that leads us very nicely to the next line, because then he says, when you're praying, do not make your prayer something automatic, but a plea for compassion before God, right? So he's saying that it's very important to say the prayers. It's very important to say Shema. It's very important to put all of this in the right place, the right time. But be careful. It shouldn't become a routine. It shouldn't become like, I need to say Shachrit Mincha Ma'ariv every day, so I open the Siddur and I do it. No. Every prayer is meant to be a conversation with God. Yeah, it's quite specific. Yeah, he calls the plea for compassion. You should know the word chanun is brought down, and it's a very specific word actually. It's here they translate as a plea. The idea of tachanun is like you're pleading, you're not coming from a place of I require this, I'm entitled to this. It's not like I demand this from you. You're coming with I don't deserve anything, I'm nothing, but could you please help me? So there's like a connection here. There's like, on the one hand, you're fulfilling your obligations of prayer, of kva. I've done my shachrit, I've done my mincha, I've done my ma'ariv, but don't come with the idea that, okay, God, I've done my part, so sort of you give me now your part. I think there's a bit of that idea. What do you think, Rabbi Yair?
First of all, I have a problem with translation here. Yeah, you're right that the word of the Harun here is the need to go into. But first of all, when you look in the word Altas Tfilatcha Keva, that you read as don't make your prayer something automatic. Now I'm quite sure that no one would use the translation automatic 2,000 years ago. That's like a very modern view on that, but it's also very far away from the word keva. Keva is something stable. It's not automatic. Right. So keva is something you talk about, something kavua, something that is grounded, something that is you're doing, and the way he presents it. First of all, we didn't even hear about tefillah until now. Mm-hmm. The whole Masechet Avot talked about Torah until now. We had a lot of Torah, but the word tefillah, if I remember correctly, was not mentioned, not in the first chapter, not this chapter. You had avodah, you had in the temple, but tefillah comes here as the first thing. And you would think, I would think that you know, Rav Shmuel, as rabbis, what is the first thing we say to people? We see you in the Shabbos in the synagogue.
Right.
We don't talk about quality. We talked about kavua.
Right.
What do we want to see? We want to see people come every week. We want to see people, and if we're more optimistic, want to see people come every day or pray. But so our goal is usually to make tfilatcha keva. Right. And here comes Rabbi Shimon and says, no. You shouldn't do that. Now, of course, Rabbi Shimon comes in a time that is not like ours, that things were more, they were not set yet. They were not as many discussions in the Mishnah and the Talmud when you open them, especially regarding Tefillah and regarding Kriyat Shema, right? We all remember I don't know if you all remember, I can say that some of you maybe remember the discussion in Kriyat Shema. Are you allowed to say it when you're in the middle of your work up in the tree? No one today will think of saying Kriyat Shema in the middle of the workday when he's when they're harvesting all of these things. It's not a realistic picture in our world, but it was in their world. It was a different. The tefillah wasn't something that you made the same thing that we do today, that you give some time. Only Hasidim Rishonim had time. Many others maybe had different views. It was more a goal to set time for tefillah and make it meaningful, but all the structure wasn't as clear as today. Mm-hmm. And here he comes and it doesn't talk about as far as I understand, Rav Shmuel could correct me if I were. I don't think he says the word automatic. What he puts as a negative, he says you have a tfilat keva, which is something you do regularly in the same way.
Right.
And the opposite would be rachamim v'tachanunim. That a prayer has to be not only a deep conversation, it has to be a cry. Rachamim v'tachanunim is in an aspect that you are in need. You need mercy, and you need and you mitchanen you beg. It's begging, right? That's a plea for compassion. The word here we have rachamim v'tachanunim lifnei hamakom. Rachamim. Again, also here, I don't think that compassion is none of the word. The word tachanun is begging, and the word rachamim is rachamim. What the word rachamim?
Mercy.
Mercy. Yes, of course. So mercy and begging. It's a way that I think Rabbi Shimon here comes in and then when you say you have to be careful that ruining tefillah. He talks to people who do pray. So you have to be careful not to ruin your tefillah by doing it as a routine that goes every day. And I have to say, personally, I'm not sure that I can identify with this. Like I feel complicated with this. First of all, because my prayers are usually not that. They're not the quality is not as good. I would say Rabbi Shimon maybe talks directly to me, because I'm definitely a person who does my tefillah keva and not rachamim v'tachanunim. I do my tefillah because I have to. This is you have a rule. You have to do it shachrit mincha. You have to do it in the morning. I do a quick tefillah. It doesn't even take a long time. I say everything I need to say, and I continue my day. It didn't rock my world. I don't feel that I talk directly to. I talk directly to God every time I pray. I would say even in a very rare occasion that happens. So maybe Rabbi Shimon, maybe I need to listen. I don't know. Maybe Rabbi Shimon here comes and talks directly to me and says I'm wrong. What do you think, Rav Shmuel? Am I wrong?
Yeah, I think it's something we all struggle with, and it's a really good question. I think what were the Chachamim doing really? Because they set up this system which is very specific. There's Amidah with a certain amount of brachot and a certain system, and there's a prayer for the holidays, there's a prayer for Yom Kippur, and there's a prayer for Shabbat. You know, I often deal in my community like with people who don't know, who didn't grow up with any of this, and it's really hard. Like, well, you have to know so much before you can talk to God. You know. It seems like almost like a crazy idea, but
and do we ruin it for them?
Yeah.
Do we ruin the possibility to talk to God when we tell them, learn to say it this way and that way? Exactly, these are the rules. You have to say it in this time of the day, and only these things. Are we ruining their tefillah? Would Rabbi Shimon come here and be furious with us that not only that our tefillah is not good enough, but we're also ruining it for the whole community? That every person who comes to us, instead of teaching them to talk to God, we teach them to do a tefillat keva.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. I think it's really good for this provocative approach. The only thing I can think of is that there is the way people live. If there wasn't something, if there is not some sort of system, you know, you have. So then, for the really spiritual people, it would be great, and they sort of would you know, they would connect to God the way they want, the best possible time. But for the majority of people, that would just mean that they just won't pray, they just won't do it at all, because you know, there's always going to be something more important on my mind. So perhaps the Chachamim felt it was worth sacrificing some of the deeper feeling of prayer, so that prayer should still exist and there should still be some sort of prayer. I don't know.
I think maybe also again, Rabbi Shimon comes in a time that the things weren't set exactly as we do today. Like it's pre the time of an organized siddur. They didn't have an organized siddur that you opened and said exactly. And maybe we can if we go read carefully the word of Rabbi Shimon, you can see that he starts by saying, be careful with B'kriyat Shema u'v'tfilah. The word about the tfilah, tfilatcha keva, goes only for tfilah, not for Kriyat Shema. Right? You have one part that is Kriyat Shema, and the other part is tfilah. All he's saying about the way you should pray when you pray is not referring to the Kriyat Shema. Like the part, the first part, he only said 3 words. The Kriyat Shema. He doesn't mention Kriyat Shema later. All the second half of the Mishnah, or most of the Mishnah, talks only about tefillah.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, these two things were, as I said, they were very different from each other. We know, for example, if I mentioned the rule of saying the Kriyat Shema on the tree.
Right.
Kriyat Shema you were allowed to say in the tree, but for tefillah you had to go down.
Right.
You weren't allowed to work to pray while working, but you were allowed to say Kriyat Shema.
Right.
It's not something I suggest you should do practically. It's better to do it together than we do it today. But at that time, maybe there was a different role for Kriyat Shema and for Tefillah. Today, everything is Tefillah, right? From Sukkot Zimra, Adon Olam, like we don't really separate the parts and think this is a different type of conversation with God. We put everything as one, but there are differences, and here is a good chance to think of this difference. And I think that Kriyat Shema is maybe more something that you just have to do. Although you can also do it from the tree. You're not supposed to be. You're supposed to be concentrated, right? You cover your eyes to not be distracted. But you don't go out of your world you don't stop your world to do it. It has to be part of of where you are. Right? When you lay down, when you stand up, it's part of our daily routine. Kriyat Shema is supposed to be a routine that has a time and has and you say it as maybe as a ritual. Maybe Rabbi Shimon will accept it. Kriyat Shema is a ritual. Kriyat Shema should be keva. Kriyat Shema has nothing to do with Rachamim Tachanunim. First of all, you don't ask for anything. Kriyat Shema is more a statement, right? It's not, you don't ask to be wise or to be, or the Chanun, we have Barchav Rachamim and Barchav, many of the things we ask for in the prayer, right? So in the Kriyat Shema, you only, not only, it's a big thing. You state something that should be something a keva. Like he doesn't even need to say it because it's Kriyat Shema. Kriyat Shema, the word is kriya. It's you shout it. It's something you need to shout. You need to do it in a specific way, right? It's a kriya. Tefillah, as Rabbi Shimon here presented, should be it should be Rachamim v'Tachanunim. It should be that you ask for mercy, you beg for mercy in front of God. You should feel that you stand in front of God and ask. And maybe that's something that we need to implement in our tefillah. Like really try to remember. I know it's hard. I'm talking to myself. I'm not preaching to you. I'm preaching to myself. I want to say to myself now when I'll say Mariv and tomorrow morning was Shachrit. I need to try to have this aspect of Rachamim Tachanunim, of really ask God for His help. Maybe I'll ask God for help to make my prayers better. That can be a good start. And then and in the Kriyat Shema, I can behold the aspect of doing it as a routine, because you have to, because you maybe Rabbi Shimon in that sense gives us a possibility of have both aspects.
Yeah, thank you. I thought to give the audience a chance. I can see there's a message here. Somebody is asking why Moses, Abraham, Yaakov, King David can talk with Hashem. Why can't you? Sorry, is this a question or just encouragement?
I have to say For this, I have a very simple answer. I have a simple answer because we have a tradition regarding that from Zusha, that the Hasidic, very famous Hasidic rabbi, that someone came to him, he found him crying, and he said, "Why are you crying?" He said, "I'm when I'm going to meet God." He said, "I'm not worried that He would ask me, why aren't you as great as Moses and as Abraham and Isaac? But I'm worried that He will tell me, why weren't you as good as Zusha? Why weren't you your maximum potential?" So I have no problem to say that King David and Abraham and Isaac and Yaakov, they had a much better connection to God than me. That doesn't bother me. But what bothers me is my connection as the best it could be, and not comparing, being myself, and we can see actually if you, it's a good combination, because we know that in the Talmud, when they discussed tefillah, and we also learned a thing in the Beit Midrash in the past, that they studied tefillah from two aspects, either as a replacement to the sacrifices, or as something that Avot Tiknun. This is the discussion in Masechet Brachot. Is it something that our forefathers, when they gave us the tefillot, Abraham Shacharit, and Yitzchak Mincha, and Yaakov Ma'ariv, as they learn in the Talmud, this is one version in the Talmud. The other says that the tefillot comes instead of the sacrifices. And these two aspects is exactly maybe what we talked about now, that you have as an alternative to sacrifices, that's a ritual that you do a specific time, and it's if we refer to our forefathers who created the concept of Tfilat Shacharit and Mincha and Ma'ariv, this is a concept of conversation with God. It's a sicha, it's a conversation. What is today's work in the temple? It said it's avodah shebalev. It's how the tefillah avodah shebalev. It's the way the heart works, serve God, and that is these two aspects are probably part of the historically. I would argue that there were these two directions probably were there already from the start. Those who said it's better to have a routine, and those who said no, it has to be the meaning. It's all about that. I know where I stand, but it's good to be challenged in that sense. Yes, so inspired by Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and King David's prayers. Not because if they could, then why can't I? I'm not in there. They were definitely much better than me in talking to God. Sorry, I want to actually to ask you also about the finish of the Mishnah, which we didn't reach it yet. That I find interesting. So if you want to continue and we can bring that also part of the picture.
So we said first of all that mercy and pleading, Rachamim Tachonim, that's the way you should pray. Why? As it says in the verse, for He is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger, abounding in kindness, and renouncing punishment. I had a bit of trouble to understand the connection between this quote from the prophets and the words of Rabbi Shimon, because Rabbi Shimon is telling you don't pray in a set way, rather plead for mercy. I think the verse seems to just be saying that God is merciful, and there is a point in what you are doing. God will answer if you plead for mercy. Another idea I saw in the commentaries again is that it's all about God's mercy and His chesed and his kindness, His love. It's not about sort of like, I've done my duty, I've done my prayers, I've done my mitzvot. Now, God, give me something. You come with pleading, you come with understanding how merciful it is. The idea of mercy is very central, that you accept that everything is coming as a free gift. That's the understanding of this verse. But the last part, this is seems that the first one is quite disconnected. V'al hi rasha bifnei atzmecha. Do not be wicked in your own esteem. They've translated, that's already a bit free translation. It's in front of yourself. That's what I mean. Bifnei atzmecha. Don't be evil in front of yourself. And you can really take this into different directions. What does it mean to be evil in front of yourself? It's actually, I would say, it's even like a new dimension that we haven't really discussed, because we've talked a lot about Ben Adam Lechavero in Pirkei Avot, a lot about our relations with other people, and we also talked a lot about our relations with God. So this is obviously, prayer is very much between you and God, Shema, Tefillah. And now we're sort of like saying, how should you look at yourself? Don't be evil towards yourself. Don't be evil in front of yourself. I'm sure Abayai looks like there's a lot to say. I just want to say a little thing that the Rambam says, that he says that don't consider yourself evil, because then you are more likely to do evil, do bad. And actually, this is really interesting. It's not the common Jewish discourse that you're used to in Jewish sources. In modern psychological ideas, you have this idea of like, don't blame yourself, don't punish yourself, like it's not healthy, but in the Torah tradition, the ethical tradition, you get much more of this feeling that you have to be aware of your mistakes, and you sort of have to repent on them, and you have to constantly improve yourself.
But here I can hear your Litvak. Your Litvak background is coming out.
But here there's like a bit of a warning sign I found. Like, don't call yourself evil. Don't think that you're evil. That's going to be very bad. If you think you're bad, or you think you're evil, that's not the right way to go. On the contrary, that's like taking you to if you think you're bad, then you're never going to even try to improve it. That's not the way to go. So I think there's a lot to say. I think Rav Yair has a lot to say. The first thing I would be interested, if you have something to say, is how do you see this connecting to the rest of the Mishnah? Because we talk about prayer, we're talking about the style of prayer, and now we're starting talking about don't blame yourself or don't be evil. So what's going on?
Yeah, I read it as directly connected to what he says. In theory, you could say there are two options of how do we read this Mishnah. One is that he says three things. One, you should be careful with Kriyat Shema and Tefillah. The other is when you pray, you should do it in this way, not the other way that we talk. And the third is don't be wicked in your own esteem. Don't consider yourself Rasha. Don't see yourself as a Rasha.
Mm-hmm.
Which can be three different sayings. I don't think so. I think there's a connection that goes directly from all of them. That we started by also talking about the relation between the first one and second. But here I think that he warns us from exactly this. If I'll be, I don't know why. I don't want to criticize the great rabbis of Tnuat Musar. There was a Musar movement, the whole movement of the Litvak Judaism that really worked all the time on looking all the time on what you did wrong, how every aspect of your life you could do something wrong, and all the time like how to say pisk to say that you tore yourself, right? You torture yourself in this tshuva and feeling all the time that you're nothing and bad. And that aspect could have come forward if we didn't have the last sentence. He said, when you pray to God. And the word that he says, it is rachamim v'tachanunim, and directly, Sheneimah, the chapter from Yoel ends, v'nicham al hara'ah, that he renouncing as punishment, but the evil that he wanted to do to us. And this punishment, this evil that he wanted to do to us, that we ask God not to punish us, can make you feel, if you all the time continuously pray with this like we do, right? Shamnu bagad. If you hit yourself all the time, you can really feel as a bad person. If you all the time, if you're only taken by every aspect of your tefillah is asking God for forgiveness, then it means you're all the time only focused on how bad the things you do. That you need forgiveness, you need mercy. And I think that Rabbi Shimon tried to say that you have to disconnect the two. That the Chamim v'Tachanunim, first of all, maybe it's because you ask God to repent and change things, not necessarily because you're evil. We all know we suffer. Rabbi Shimon himself suffered heavily, and one of them, those who were murdered, and so many of his generations too. So we know how much asking God to for mercy doesn't mean that we are evil. We just yesterday had the Yom HaShoah. Of course, there's no question in mind, and no person that has some brain and some heart that would argue that any one of them is to blame for the punishment they got. And whoever said that, he's a big choteh that really should redemp and go and ask for a big tshuva. So asking for tachanun, asking for God's help, doesn't mean we're wicked. Like we can separate these two, and in our own eyes, do something that usually the rabbis used punishment. Not only rabbis, priests, everyone used punishment as a way to control the people. By telling them you're bad, you have to redempt, you have to change, you have to. And Rabbi Shimon comes here and says, no. You should ask for mercy. That has nothing to do with what you did or you didn't do. You should ask for mercy because you ask for mercy, maybe not only for yourself, you ask for mercy in general. Nicham al hara'ah is not only on the ra'ah that he meant to do to you. Maybe when we do tefillah, we pray for whoever needs help. And not necessarily only rachamim v'tachanunim for ourselves. And in that sense, we ask for God's help, but it doesn't mean that we make ourselves wicked. And that conception is very easy to misunderstand if we only had the first part. If I didn't have the last part, V'al tihi rasha b'finei atzmecha, I would think that Rabbi Shimon went and studied very good all the Torah Musar and all these aspects of redemption, regret, and you should. And you had rabbis that did that. You had the famous rabbi who brought the Asham Talui every day. Every day he brought an offering that if he did something wrong, then to make sure that he doesn't. This way of thinking that we're all the time wrongdoers and sinners. I think Rabbi Shimon asked us to go away from that. Maybe that was part of, as we know, Rabbi Shimon, you mentioned going out of the Me'ara and what happened. he evolved, right? His way of thinking of people changed. The first time he came out of the cave, he saw people who were just working, and he looked at them and burnt them. He think that people who wasted their time on regular life instead of devoting themselves to God, they do wrong. And then the second time, God called him back to the gate and said, "You misunderstood something." Maybe Rabbi Shimon teaches us the same thing. He starts by wanting the devotion, wanting us to really beg God and ask God for help and for forgiveness and for and all these things. But at the same time, he wants us to look on us in Ein Tovah. He doesn't want us to consider ourselves as wicked. He doesn't want us to feel as bad people. He wants us to believe in ourselves and believe in God that can help us. That's my. What do you think?
Yeah. No, very, very important and very, very powerful. And I think this is like I never really thought about in the past so much who are the different rabbis saying, but the fact this is coming from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is actually, I think, very meaningful because he's like you said, he's an evolving character. He's the man who, is a bit aggressive at the beginning of the story of the Talmud. We say he criticized the Romans very badly. That's why he has to go into hiding, and he comes out of the cave, and again he sees people working while they're wasting their time. But then he comes out in a softer way, and he says that there is a purpose in what they're doing, and I can definitely relate to the connection to here, like aim high, aim, pray. Be careful about prayers and pray from the depth of your heart, but don't blame yourself. I think there's a story of the Chazon Ish. I think he said such an idea that before you pray mincha, concentrate, try to do your best. But after you've prayed, don't go back to it and say, "Oh, I feel so bad because I didn't concentrate." Because no, you have to feel good. You've done a mitzvah. You've done something really, really good. Be proud of yourself. Move on with your life. If you're constantly questioning and going back, and then it's not a healthy way to serve God. So
but maybe I needed to hear that after the first thing they said. After I started with saying the parts of how my prayer looks like. So I needed to hear your message from Chazon Ish, that I shouldn't feel bad with myself about how my prayer looks like. I should focus on doing my prayer better in the future. But when I did it, I do need to enjoy, be happy with what I have. And I saw before there was someone who raised his hand and wanted to say something, and we ignored it completely. So I don't know who it was. Maybe you want to. Paulina now wants to talk, but Daniel, right? It was you.
Yes, I raised the hand, but Linda can go first. So.
No, that's fine. You already.
Okay. I only thought about when you spoke about the automatic, the prayer being automatic. We also mentioned it in our community about the part where you say in the prayer, in a psalm, you say Shir le Hashem Shir Hadash, and it got me thinking of that, and we spoke about the prayer that also there are different tones that we have in the prayer, and that sometimes it's difficult to change that. So there is also resistance to change some tones, even if some people don't sing along in those songs. Yeah. So
I had this Pesach. Someone came to me in my community. I won't mention names, but those in Denmark might recognize. So I need to be careful. And someone came to me after the prayer when I was Chazan and said, "Your prayer today was 12 out of 10." You did every melody perfectly, all the melodies of the Copenhagen tradition. And I have to admit that when he came to say and said that to me, I felt I did something wrong. Because I know that the person only wants the tune, always you just want the tunes to be the correct tunes. That we have to do only the aspect of keva, like you said. That you have the tune of every chag, that it has to be. And I felt, oh no, there was no place for anything that comes from the heart. It was only from the books.
Exactly.
Like that, maybe I did something wrong. I had no shir chadash, only shir yashan, only the old songs, no new song, no new tune, new melodies, and so yeah, I definitely identify with that. Sometimes the old song can be part of open our heart. So I think we should. It's not because I'm against the good old songs. Everything that can open our heart is the good thing, is something that makes people feel part and relay something that they can relate to. That is very important. But we should have room for shir chadash too, also for the new song. But Paulina?
Yes, I was just thinking when I look at the text and when I hear you both talking, that for me somehow when he says this, he also connects to the way Hannah prays in the temple. That it comes from within. So it is a reminder of maybe also to remember to pray like Hannah. That was just a thought.
As you know, the Tfilat Chana is a model of Tfilah that we all learn from. And she's definitely within these two worlds. She is the world of what Rabbi Shimon says here. I think you could very correctly place him next to her, because Eli comes to her and says there are rituals. What are you doing? You are stop drinking, because you give so much place to. You do weird thing, right? You do shir chadash. You do something that no one saw before, and you do weird things. Stop doing that. You should go back to normal. And Rabbi Shimon would definitely stand next to her and says, "Come, teach me more on how to really pray." And she definitely prayed and asks from the bottom of her heart, cries and cried her heart out, just like Rabbi Shimon says. While Eli, the priest, represents the routine, the keva, the thing that are supposed to be done in the right way. So I definitely agree with you that it's connected to that world, and Chana represents it more than anyone else in Jewish tradition. We're all supposed to learn from her how to pray. That's Rav Shmuel, I want to continue because I think that we shouldn't open a completely new topic.
Yeah, we only have 10 minutes, so we can, if you prefer, we can just, yeah, you're right. Maybe we just concentrate on this. Any other questions people would like to ask on this?
Or comment?
Comment, any ideas? Think.
If not, I opened my heart here, but I really want to ask you about how do you feel with these words of Rachamim and Tachanunim in your world? Because I have to admit, I find it hard to relate to it. I used to in the past. Like I feel something that I had as a teenager and when I was in my 20s, 21, 22, and it's something that I feel I've lost. Do you have like a good advice for me, or a different take that can help regarding what? What can Rachamim and Tachanunim be for us?
Yeah. One idea I once heard in my yeshiva years that a younger person tends to get more emotional, so to say, and an older person gets more and more, would become more intellectual or rational. And so I think, I don't know, maybe just talking about myself as well, like as a youngster, like there's like this exciting thing, kadosh, 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 the angels are standing. I can sort of like picture it, because almost like a child, you can just sort of imagine it, like the angels are singing. And then like you get older and you think, well, what are angels and what do they mean? It's a huge philosophical question even. What do these things mean? And you start like sort of disconnecting from that. So there's like, you can like fight it, or you can just accept that, look, I'm a different stage in life, and maybe I'm not meant to feel this sort of very I don't know, just jump into it in the same way. Maybe I need more time to take out and study and think what this prayer means to me. I also have to rethink sometimes, because my new position has tried to teach it to others, and teaching it to a youngster, let's say, who just doesn't know it and doesn't connect to it, and where do you put the line? We often have this question, like, let's say you take a bar mitzvah kid, for example. Well, what's more useful? I don't know. Is it, on the one hand, if you teach him material, you teach him a lot of prayers in Hebrew, lots of texts, so it's useful, because many years later he's going to sit at some sort of he's going to be in a synagogue somewhere, who knows where, and maybe he can lead the service, maybe he can read from the Torah, maybe he's not going to feel stupid, he's going to feel empowered and good. On the other hand, what do those prayers mean if he doesn't know what they are, or they're just repeating lots of words in Hebrew? That's not really even praying. If you look at Rabbi Shimon's words, it's not really even praying. So I don't know. I'm throwing the idea. I'm very happy to hear different comments.
Maybe
I think you need a balance.
some of you can give us advice. So we're both of us are quite young rabbis. I can see here people prayed more years than I did. Maybe you can come and give us some advice on how do we. I feel the same as you said, like that you felt something you could really visualize and feel from your gut, like in the prayers. Many years in my 20s, I had the most terrible prayers, because it was a period that I was more, could say, more Hasidic. I was very connected to a Hasidic rabbi in Jerusalem that my rabbi, who I admire and love until today. He was a Hasidic rabbi, Yisrael Friedman Ben Shalom, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. And I remember that for 3, 4, maybe 5 years, I suffered in prayer. And why did I suffer? Because I tried to feel. I tried to do what Rabbi Shimon says. With all my heart, like really, I had long prayers, and I tried to feel and focus, and after a while, I found out that I was frustrated because I didn't pray. I tried to pray. I tried to feel, and it ruined my prayer. That instead of praying, I felt all the time that I am trying. I felt that that I live all my religious life in trying and not being. And it was a huge let go when I decided to stop trying. Some of it maybe because I understood that this feeling was connected with my age. Our feelings when we are 18, 19, they're more whole, right? They take over us. We feel the energies in a completely different level. And so part of it was me understanding that I'm not 18, 19 anymore. But this was an explanation. I needed to find something that replaced it. And for me, what replaced it was actually Tfilat Keva. So I would say I went exactly the different direction from Rabbi Shimon. I said that this is where I am in my life, is a stage in my life. And maybe at some point I can return to Rabbi Shimon. I don't know. I hope. I really, I'm looking at some of your faces, and I really hope that you can come and give me a good advice to say how you can really feel in a different way. How you can experience a conversation with God. It's so rare for me to really have this. Yes, to feel the presence and feel that my prayer is a yeah, I stand here and I don't have I don't have any good suggestion for you. But my suggestion is maybe not insist on trying if it's really not the right thing for you, because that is devastating. It ruined my tefillot. I could have given up on everything when I didn't feel anymore. I felt I lost something. And maybe that's part of the danger that Rabbi Shimon says. It's part of the way you look on yourself. It's important to remember the look on yourself in Ein Tova too, and not being so critical. But it's yes, it wasn't easy for me. Yeah. Now I got emotional, so it's. So, Rav Shmuel, I think
People
we
are
should
quiet. Say some words of conclusion, it looks like.
Yeah, I don't know a conclusion, but first of all, a wish that we will have a real tefillot.
I'll share you something which I remember from my yeshiva days. There was a rabbi there, like a very serious, middle-aged rabbi, very respected. And Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur were coming, and he said, "You know what? In my life, I've never, we say special slichot, special prayers of forgiveness on the mornings, usually the week before Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and in between. Sfaradim start a bit earlier, but special prayers of forgiveness before the Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur." And this rabbi said very openly, I'll tell you the truth, I've never said all of them. They're long, they're very difficult poetry. Even for big rabbis, it's very difficult language. I concentrate on one. I try to really think about what I'm saying, and the time it takes for the Chazan to say all the prayers, it takes me to just say one or two. And then I start getting ready, put on my talit and tefillin, and I start shachrit properly for once. I'm not in a rush. I'm not jumping out of bed to put on my talit and tefillin. I have my time. They're still saying slichot. I can for once put on my talit and tefillin properly, start the prayers properly. I'm not in a rush. So I think this is, and to me, like when I was in this yeshiva environment, and I heard this, I said, okay, so this is his way of serving God. But then I was telling it to somebody outside, a businessman. I was invited to somebody's home on Shabbat, and he was shocked to hear like a great rabbi doesn't say all the slichot. He couldn't believe it, And I think this is like a really interesting thing to keep in mind, that you don't need to, there are certain very basic rules. There's the Shema, there's the Amidah, but the Chazan's job is to lead the prayers and to arrange, so to say, the ritual, a bit like you talk about Eli and Hannah. But if you're not the Chazan, say the Shema, say the Amidah, say that's really important. But don't feel that you have to do everything, and you have to say every single word, and you have to keep up with this pace. I think this word about Shira Chadasha, I think is quite good advice. There is a structure, but there is place for individuality in the structure. Some people will feel a lot more connection to this, and other people feel a lot more connection to that. And you have to know what is good for you. I think tefillah is a very personal it's a very personal path, and Rabbi Yair has been very, very, very honest talking, and but I can definitely, everything he said, I can say about myself as well. It's not easy for me either, and I think this is, a good project and a good idea. We can all think about how to make tefillah meaningful, first for ourselves and then for everybody else.
Thank you so much. Shabbat Shalom, and have a great Yom Ha'atzmaut.